Get that monkey out of my first-class cabin. Now. The words sliced through the pressurized air of Flight 2187, suspended at 37,000 feet somewhere over the Midwest. For a heartbeat, everything freezes. The flight attendants practiced smile, the ice cubes in half-empty glasses, the collective breath of 12 first-class passengers. In the sudden silence, Captain Richard Whittaker stands in the galley entrance, flight manual clutched in white-knuckled hands. His weathered face flushed with anger as he glares at the woman in seat 3. A Dr. Elise Montgomery slowly lowers her medical journal, dark eyes meeting the pilot's over designer reading glasses. 20 years of surgical precision have taught her to keep her hands steady even when they want to tremble. "Excuse me," she asks, her voice soft but carrying an edge sharp enough to perform the cardiothoracic surgeries she's known for. The pilot's jaw tightens beneath his perfectly trimmed salt and pepper beard. "You heard me. I don't know how you got in here, but first class isn't your place." His gold-striped sleeve rises as he points toward the economy cabin. "Back there, now." A collective gasp ripples through first class. Smartphones emerge from pockets. Someone whispers, "Is he serious?" A distinguished older gentleman in 4C shakes his head in disgust. The lead flight attendant, Jennifer, steps between them, panic flashing in her eyes. "Captain Whittaker, Dr. Montgomery is a platinum member, and I don't care if she's the Queen of Sheba," Whittaker snaps. "I'm the captain of this aircraft, and I want her moved." Dr. Montgomery's hands remain perfectly still on her journal. 27 years of being underestimated, questioned, and overlooked have taught her something else too, when to fight and when to document. "Jennifer," she says calmly, "please note that your captain has referred to me as a monkey and is attempting to remove me from the seat I paid for. I'd like his full name and employee number for my complaint." The tension in the cabin stretches taut as piano wire. A teenager in 2D has been recording since the first slur, his wide eyes darting between the captain and Dr. Montgomery. And that's when the bathroom door at the front of the cabin swings open. Marcus Montgomery steps into the aisle, 6'3" of controlled power in a tailored charcoal suit. His presence immediately recalibrates the energy of the space. The CEO of Ascendant Technologies, one of the airline's biggest corporate clients, takes in the scene with the same analytical precision that built his tech empire. His wife's rigid posture, the captain's aggressive stance, the horrified passengers, the recording phones. "I believe," Marcus says with deadly calm, "that my wife asked for your name and employee number, Captain Whittaker. But to understand how we got here, 37,000 feet above America's heartland, with careers and reputations hanging in the balance, we need to step back 6 hours, to a rainy Tuesday morning at O'Hare International Airport, when Flight 2187 was just another departure on the board, and its passengers were still strangers united only by their shared destination. The terminal bustles with the controlled chaos particular to major airports. Rolling suitcases click across polished floors. Announcements echo through the vaulted ceilings. The smell of overpriced coffee mingles with the antiseptic scent of industrial cleaners. At gate C-17, Elise Montgomery arrives exactly 90 minutes before departure, as she always does. Travel is a science, and after hundreds of flights to medical conferences and speaking engagements, she has refined it to an art. Her caramel-colored trench coat is draped over one arm, her leather laptop bag hangs from her shoulder, and she pulls a single carry-on suitcase containing exactly 5 days' worth of clothing, the perfect amount for the American College of Surgeons Conference in San Francisco. "Checking in for Montgomery," she tells the gate agent, sliding her ID and platinum member card across the counter. "Dr. Elise Montgomery." The agent's fingers tap across her keyboard. "Yes, Dr. Montgomery." "First class, seat 3, will your husband be joining you today?" Elise shakes her head. "He's on a later flight, board meeting this morning." She doesn't add that Marcus had offered to reschedule to fly with her as he usually does. After 23 years of marriage, they've learned when to hold tight and when to give space. This conference, where she's receiving a Lifetime Achievement Award for her pioneering work in pediatric cardiothoracic surgery, is her moment. Marcus will join her tomorrow, just in time for the ceremony. "Very good," the agent says, returning her cards. "We'll begin boarding in about 40 minutes. You're welcome to use the Platinum Lounge until then." Elise nods her thanks and turns toward the lounge when her phone buzzes. A text from Marcus, just finished prep for board meeting, all set for tomorrow. "So proud of you, Dr. Montgomery. Call when you land." She smiles and taps back. "Will do. Don't forget your tux." His response is immediate, "As if you'd let me. Love you." In the Platinum Lounge, Elise selects a quiet corner and orders a sparkling water. She opens her laptop to review her acceptance speech one more time, though she practically knows it by heart. 27 years of medicine flashed through her mind, from the wide-eyed medical student who was one of only 3 black women in her class, to the surgeon who pioneered a technique that reduced mortality in infant heart surgeries by 60%. Her thoughts are interrupted by a voice from the adjacent table. Told them I'm not flying if they put her on my plane. It's bad enough they're letting them in the cockpit now. Elise doesn't look up, but her fingers pause on the keyboard. The diversity hire, another male voice responds. The one from the commercial. That's the one, 20-something with barely any hours. They're so obsessed with checking boxes, they're putting passengers at risk. Jesus, what's next? Stewardesses flying the plane. Laughter follows, rich with the confidence of men who have never had their competence questioned based on their appearance. Elise takes a slow sip of her water. She could say something, should say something. But today, she decides, is not the day for that battle. Tomorrow she'll stand on a stage and accept an award that speaks louder than any retort she could offer these dinosaurs. She closes her laptop and moves to another seat, further from the voices but closer to the window where she can watch planes take off into the cloudy Chicago sky. Across the terminal, in the United Airlines operations room, Captain Richard Whitaker reviews the flight plan for San Francisco while sipping coffee that's been burned beyond recognition. 43 years in the cockpit, from military transports to commercial airliners, and he still can't get a decent cup of coffee in an airport. Weather's looking rough on approach to SFO, says First Officer Derek Chen, sliding into the chair beside him. Latest report shows fog and potential wind shear. Whitaker grunts acknowledgement without looking up. Nothing we haven't handled before. His eyes scan the passenger manifest. Full flight, packed, 12 in first, full main cabin. Special note about a platinum member in 3A, Dr. Montgomery. Apparently she's some hotshot surgeon. Whitaker makes another noncommittal sound. In his view, the only people who matter once the doors close are his crew. Everyone else is cargo that occasionally complains. Pre-flight in 20, he says, draining his coffee and standing. I'll meet you at the gate. As he walks through the terminal, Whitaker's mind is already in the cockpit. He doesn't notice the young black woman in a first officer's uniform standing at a nearby gate, doesn't see how passengers do double takes as they hand her their boarding passes, doesn't hear the little girl asking her mother if girls can really be pilots too. What he does notice when he reaches gate C-17 is the gathering storm visible through the vast windows. Dark clouds mass on the horizon, promising turbulence. Whitaker smiles slightly. He's always loved flying in challenging conditions. It reminds him that despite all the automation and computers, in the end, it still comes down to skill and experience. His skill, his experience. In the boarding area, passengers begin to gather. Among them is Tyler Jenkins, 16 years old and flying alone for the first time to visit his father in California. His mother had fussed over him until the last possible moment, reminding him to text when he lands to keep his boarding pass safe, to be careful with the credit card she'd given him for emergencies. Mom, I'll be fine, he'd insisted, adjusting the AirPods around his neck. It's just a plane ride. Now, sitting by the window watching ground crews scurry about in the increasing rain, he feels a flutter of nervousness. The plane looks impossibly small from here, vulnerable against the darkening sky. He fiddles with his phone, opening TikTok to distract himself, scrolling through videos of pranks and dance challenges. A notification pops up. Boarding for Flight 2187 to San Francisco will begin in 15 minutes. Please have your boarding passes ready. Across the gate area, 87-year-old Rose Fitzgerald clutches her worn leather handbag a little tighter. This will be her first flight in over 20 years, not since Harold passed. Their daughter Maggie has been begging her to come to San Francisco for ages, to meet her grandchildren who know her only through weekly FaceTime calls that Rose still hasn't quite gotten the hang of. You're going to love San Francisco, Mom, Maggie had promised during their last call. The kids can't wait to show you the sea lions at Pier 39. Rose isn't so sure about San Francisco, with its hills and hippies and strange new foods Maggie keeps talking about, but she's sure about her grandchildren. At 87, she's become acutely aware of time's passage, of moments that can't be recovered. So she'd finally said yes, had endured the indignities of security with its bins and body scans, and now sits waiting, hoping the arthritis in her knees won't act up during the long flight. The gate agent's voice comes over the loudspeaker. We're now boarding Flight 2187 to San Francisco. At this time, we invite our first-class passengers, active military personnel, and those needing special assistance to board through Lane 1. Elise Montgomery rises from her seat in the lounge, gathers her belongings, and heads toward the gate. As she walks, she mentally transitions from Elise the woman to Dr. Montgomery the professional. A subtle shift in posture, in the set of her shoulders, in the careful neutrality of her expression. It's a change she's made so many times it's become automatic, a form of armor donned before entering spaces where she might need protection. At the same moment, Marcus Montgomery concludes his final pre-board meeting preparation. In the sleek downtown offices of Ascendant Technologies, floor-to-ceiling windows offer panoramic views of a rain-lashed Chicago. Marcus stands at the window watching sheets of water cascade down the glass while his assistant runs through his schedule one more time. The board convenes at 11:30, she says, consulting her tablet. Financial presentation first, then the quarterly report, followed by the vote on the Pacific expansion. Your flight to San Francisco is at 6:45 p.m., arriving at 9:17 local time. Marcus nods, adjusting his cufflinks platinum with tiny sapphires that match his company's logo, a gift from Elise on their 20th anniversary. And the car will be waiting at SFO? Confirmed. It will take you directly to the hotel. Dr. Montgomery's award ceremony is tomorrow at 7 p.m. at the Fairmont. Perfect. Marcus turns from the window. At 54, he carries his success in the assured way he moves, in the perfect cut of his suit, in the quiet authority of his voice. The tech world is not known for its diversity, particularly at the executive level, and Marcus has spent decades navigating spaces where he is often the only black face in the room. Like Elise, he has learned when to speak and when to let his accomplishments speak for him. Anything else? He asks. His assistant hesitates. Just one thing. Continental Airways called to confirm your company's contract renewal. Their VP of Corporate Relations mentioned they're very eager to continue the relationship. Marcus smiles slightly. Ascendant Technologies books thousands of flights annually for its employees, a substantial piece of business for any airline. Tell them we'll discuss it at next month's review, and remind them I'll be on their flight this evening. Back at O'Hare, the jetway to Flight 2187 is filling with passengers. Captain Whitaker and First Officer Chen have completed their exterior inspection despite the rain and are settling into the cockpit, running through pre-flight checklists with the practiced efficiency of seasoned professionals. Hydraulics, checked and operational. Fuel quantity, 27,000 pounds balanced. Weather radar, active and calibrated. The routine is comforting in its familiarity. Whitaker feels the familiar pre-flight anticipation, the slight uptick in his heart rate that even 40-plus years of flying hasn't eliminated. He might complain about the job sometimes, the corporate bureaucracy, the increasing emphasis on customer satisfaction over operational excellence, the changing culture. But in the cockpit, hand on the controls, he still feels at home. In the cabin, flight attendant Jennifer Martinez prepares for boarding. At 48, she's seen the airline industry transform around her. From the golden age of air travel with its glamour and exclusivity to today's cattle car efficiency, where passengers are crammed into ever-shrinking seats. First class remains the last bastion of the old ways, and Jennifer takes pride in maintaining those standards. She smooths her uniform and checks that each first-class seat has its welcome package, hot towel menu headphones. As passengers begin to board, she greets them with practiced warmth. Welcome aboard. Right this way to first class. Elise Montgomery is among the first to board, her movements efficient as she stows her carry-on and settles into 3A. She exchanges brief pleasantries with Jennifer, then turns her attention to her medical journal. The other first-class passengers trickle in, a mix of business travelers in expensive suits, a celebrity chef who Jennifer recognizes from Food Network, an elderly couple celebrating their 50th anniversary with a trip to wine country. In the main cabin, Tyler Jenkins finds his window seat and immediately presses his face to the glass, watching the ground crew work in the rain. Next to him, Rose Fitzgerald eases herself carefully into the middle seat, wincing slightly as her knees protest. First flight, she asks Tyler, noticing his wide-eyed interest in the proceedings outside. He turns, slightly embarrassed. That obvious, huh? Rose smiles, the lines around her eyes deepening. I remember my first flight, 1957, prop plane from Boston to New York. I was terrified the whole time, clutching my rosary so hard my fingers were white when we landed. Tyler grins. This is my first time flying alone. I'm going to see my dad in San Francisco. How wonderful. I'm visiting my daughter and grandchildren. I haven't been on a plane since 1999. Their conversation is interrupted by the arrival of their Rose third occupant, a harried-looking businessman who sighs dramatically at having to step over Rose to reach the aisle seat. Throughout the aircraft, similar scenes unfold as strangers negotiate the intimate proximity that air travel enforces. Overhead bins slam closed. Flight attendants assist with bags and answer questions. The ambient noise rises, a symphony of human voices, rustling papers, clicking seatbelts, and the constant background hum of the auxiliary power unit. In the cockpit, Captain Whitaker receives clearance from the ground crew. Boarding complete, comes the report through his headset. Doors closed and secured. He acknowledges with a brief, "Roger that," then turns to First Officer Chen. "Let's get this bird in the air before that storm gets any closer." The pushback from the gate is smooth. The taxi to the runway a slow procession through the maze of concrete arteries that connect the terminals to the runways. Rain streaks across the cockpit windows. Inside the cabin, the safety demonstration plays on screens while most passengers pay the minimum required attention, more focused on settling in for the 4-hour flight ahead. "Flight 2187, you are cleared for takeoff on runway 28 right," the control tower announces. "Roger, tower." "Flight 2187 cleared for takeoff," Whitaker responds, advancing the throttles. The engines spool up with a satisfying roar. The aircraft begins to move, gathering speed down the rain-slicked runway. In seat 3A, Elise feels the familiar pressure against her back, the slight flutter in her stomach as the nose lifts and the ground falls away. Beside her, the seat remains empty, Marcus's usual place when they travel together. The main cabin, Tyler grips his armrests, eyes wide as the plane climbs steeply through the clouds. Rose pats his hand gently. "The takeoff is the exciting part," she assures him. "Once we're up in the air, it's smooth sailing." As if to contradict her, the aircraft gives a sudden lurch, shuddering as it punches through a layer of turbulence. Several passengers gasp. A few rows back, someone swears quietly. "Just a little bumpy air," Jennifer announces over the intercom, her voice calm and reassuring. "Please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened until the captain turns off the seatbelt sign." In the cockpit, Whitaker's experienced hands make minute adjustments, finding the smoothest path through the unstable air mass. "Looks like we'll be in this for another few minutes," he tells Chen. "Let's climb to 37,000. Should be smoother up there." The aircraft continues its ascent, breaking through the cloud layer into the bright sunshine above. Below, Chicago and its sprawling suburbs are hidden beneath a blanket of white, the storms invisible from this altitude. The shuddering eases, then stops altogether as they reach their cruising altitude. The seatbelt sign dings off. In the cabin, passengers begin to move about, retrieving items from overhead bins, forming lines for the lavatories. Jennifer and her crew commence the beverage service, starting with first class. "What can I get you to drink, Dr. Montgomery?" Jennifer asks, stopping beside 3A. Elise looks up from her journal. "Sparkling water with lime, please." As Jennifer prepares the drink, Elise's phone buzzes with a text. "Marcus, board meeting running long, might have to take a later flight, we'll keep you posted." She frowns slightly, then types back, "Everything okay?" His response comes quickly, "Just the usual boardroom politics. Nothing to worry about. How's your flight?" "Smooth so far." Pilot seemed in a hurry to get us off the ground before the storm worsened. In the gleaming boardroom of Ascendant Technologies, Marcus Montgomery sits at the head of a massive table, 18 board members arrayed around him like courtiers before a king. Financial reports are projected on the wall behind him, charts and graphs in the company's signature blue and silver color scheme. "As you can see," he's saying, "our third-quarter results exceeded projections by 17%. The Pacific expansion represents not just a significant growth opportunity, but a strategic positioning that will." His phone buzzes silently on the table beside him. Elise's text. He glances at it briefly, then continues his presentation without missing a beat. "That will allow us to capitalize on emerging markets while strengthening our core business." Board member Victoria Winters leans forward. "The capital expenditure projections seem aggressive, Marcus." "Are we certain the ROI timeline is realistic?" Marcus nods, unruffled. "The analysis on page 43 addresses this specifically. Our modeling suggests." His phone buzzes again. This time, several board members notice, eyebrows raising slightly. "Excuse me," Marcus says smoothly. "As a matter of fact, this relates to our discussion. My wife is currently on Continental Airways Flight 2187, part of our corporate account. The service experience of our employees and their families directly informs our decisions about airline partnerships." It's a graceful pivot, one that transforms his momentary distraction into a relevant business point. The board members nod, accepting the explanation. Marcus quickly responds to Elise's text, then turns his full attention back to the meeting. "Now, regarding the ROI timeline, if you'll turn to the supplementary materials." 37,000 feet above America's heartland, Flight 2187 cruises westward. In first class, the lunch service has begun. White tablecloths are laid, real silverware distributed, warm bread served from a basket. It's a carefully choreographed ritual, a reminder of air travel's more genteel past. Elise has set aside her journal, engaging in polite conversation with the man across the aisle, Dr. Samuel Abernathy, as it turns out, another surgeon headed to the same conference. "Your paper on vascular regeneration in pediatric patients was brilliant," he tells her, clearly impressed. "Changed our approach at Mass General." Elise smiles, graciously accepting the compliment. "Thank you, it was a team effort, of course." "Of course, but the innovation was clearly yours." "Are you presenting this year?" "Actually, I'm receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award." Abernathy's eyebrows rise. "Well deserved. I'll make a point to attend the ceremony." Their conversation continues through the meal, touching on recent medical advances, mutual colleagues, the challenges of teaching the next generation of surgeons. It's the kind of professional networking that happens naturally in first class, one of the perks that justifies the exorbitant ticket price. In the main cabin, the service is more utilitarian: plastic cups, packaged snacks, brief interactions as flight attendants move efficiently through the narrow aisles. Tyler Jenkins has dozed off, his AirPods still around his neck. Beside him, Rose Fitzgerald works on a crossword puzzle, occasionally glancing out the window at the vast expanse of clouds below. 2 hours into the flight, Captain Whitaker unbuckles his seatbelt. "I'm going to stretch my legs," he tells Chen. "Take a walk through the cabin, use the lavatory, you have the controls." "I have the controls," Chen confirms, formally acknowledging the transfer of command. Whitaker steps out of the cockpit, nodding to Jennifer as he passes through the forward galley. His eyes scan the first-class cabin automatically, assessing without seeming to a habit from his military days. He notes the positions of the flight attendants, the status of the beverage service, the behavior of the passengers. His gaze lands briefly on Elise in 3A, deep in conversation with Abernathy. Something flickers across his face, too quick to interpret before he continues his walkthrough. He passes through the main cabin, exchanging brief pleasantries with passengers who recognize his uniform and captain's stripes. "Is the weather good in San Francisco, Captain?" one asks. "Looking fine for our arrival," Whitaker assures them, his public face perfectly professional. He uses the lavatory in the rear of the aircraft, then begins his return to the cockpit. As he passes through first class again, he notices Elise standing, preparing to use the forward lavatory. Their paths will intersect in the narrow space by the galley. Whitaker pauses, a courtesy to allow her to pass first. "After you," he says. "Thank you, Captain," Elise responds politely. It's a brief interaction, unremarkable. Neither could have guessed that in just 1 hour they would be locked in a confrontation that would change the trajectory of both their lives. Back in the cockpit, Whitaker resumes command from Chen. "Anything to report?" "All systems normal. Weather at SFO is improving. Fog's clearing earlier than expected." "Good. Let's check in with air traffic control for our approach vector." The routine of flight continues. Fuel checks, position reports, minor course adjustments. Below, the landscape has transformed from the urban sprawl of the Midwest to the rugged terrain of the Rocky Mountains. Passengers with window seats are treated to spectacular views of snow-capped peaks and deep valleys. In the Ascendant Technologies boardroom, the meeting has reached a critical juncture. The vote on the Pacific expansion is about to take place, the culmination of 18 months of planning and negotiation. "Before we proceed to the vote," Marcus says, "I want to address any final questions or concerns." Board member James Harrington clears his throat. "The cultural considerations of entering these markets are significant. Our previous attempts at Asian expansion have been less than successful." There's a murmur of agreement around the table. The failure of Ascendant Singapore office 5 years earlier remains a sensitive topic. Marcus nods, acknowledging the point. "Which is precisely why we've approached this differently. Our partnership with local tech incubators, the gradual staffing model, the emphasis on cultural competency training, all direct responses to the lessons learned from Singapore." His phone buzzes again. He ignores it this time, focused on the moment at hand. "I believe," he continues, "that Ascendant Technologies has a unique opportunity to bridge technological divides across the Pacific. This isn't just about market share or quarterly profits. It's about positioning ourselves at the forefront of a global technological revolution." His words resonate with the board members. Marcus has always had this gift, the ability to elevate business decisions from mere transactions to meaningful missions. It's part of what has made Ascendant so successful under his leadership. "If there are no further questions," he concludes, "I call for a vote on Resolution 47, authorizing the Pacific expansion as detailed in the proposal before you." Hands rise around the table, one after another. The resolution passes unanimously. Marcus allows himself a small smile of satisfaction. Years of work, countless negotiations, hundreds of late nights, all culminating in this moment of consensus. As the meeting adjourns, his assistant approaches with a concerned expression. Mr. Montgomery, there's a situation developing on your wife's flight. Marcus feels a chill of concern. What kind of situation? I'm not entirely sure. Continental Airways called. They requested you contact their executive services team immediately. Marcus's expression hardens. He pulls out his phone, noting 3 missed texts from Elise and a voicemail from an unknown number. Get me a car, he says to his assistant, and rebook me on the next flight to San Francisco, any airline. Back on Flight 2187, the incident has already begun to unfold. It started simply enough. A request from Elise for a fresh sparkling water, a momentary delay in service as Jennifer attended to another passenger. Nothing unusual, nothing that would typically merit attention. But when Elise pressed her call button a second time, it coincided with Captain Whitaker emerging from the cockpit to speak with Jennifer about the approach to San Francisco. He noticed the illuminated button, saw Elise waiting patiently, observed Jennifer occupied with another task. What seems to be the problem? He asked. Approaching 3A, Elise looked up, slightly surprised to see the captain rather than a flight attendant. No problem at all, just waiting for a refill when the attendant is available. Something in her tone, perhaps the calm assurance, perhaps the implicit suggestion that her need wasn't urgent, triggered a response in Whitaker. A subtle shift in his demeanor, a tightening around his eyes. First-class passengers do tend to expect immediate service, he remarked, his voice carrying an edge that hadn't been there before. Elise's expression remained neutral, though her eyes narrowed slightly. I'm perfectly happy to wait my turn, Captain. I understand your crew has many passengers to attend to. The exchange might have ended there, should have ended there, but Whitaker lingered. First time in first class. He asked, the question laden with implication. Around them, other passengers began to take notice of the interaction. The celebrity chef paused mid-bite. Abernathy looked up from his laptop. The elderly couple exchanged glances. No, Elise replied evenly. I fly first class regularly, platinum member for the past 15 years. Whitaker nodded slowly, skepticism evident in his expression. 15 years, that's quite an achievement. Jennifer approached then, sensing the tension. Can I help with something, Captain? Dr. Montgomery would like a refill, he said, emphasizing her title in a way that somehow diminished rather than respected it. Of course, Jennifer responded, professional as ever. Right away, Dr. Montgomery. Whitaker returned to the cockpit, but the atmosphere in first class had shifted. Conversations became quieter, glances more furtive. Elise returned to her medical journal, her posture a fraction more rigid than before. 30 minutes later, as the flight continued uneventfully toward the west coast, Elise rose to use the lavatory again. As she waited for it to become available, she checked her phone, airplane mode on, but still able to view texts she'd received before boarding. Another message from Marcus had come through just before takeoff. Board meeting successful. Pacific expansion approved unanimously. Heading to airport now for earlier flight. Might be on your plane when you land. Love you. The thought brought a smile to her face. Marcus had been as excited about her award as she was, perhaps even more so. His pride in her accomplishments had never wavered, never been tinged with the competitive edge she'd observed in some of her colleagues' marriages. The lavatory became available, and Elise stepped inside. When she emerged a few minutes later, Captain Whitaker was once again in the galley, this time reviewing weather reports with Jennifer. Looks like clear skies all the way to SFO now, he was saying. We might even arrive early. That would be wonderful, Jennifer replied. I have theater tickets tonight. Their conversation halted as Elise appeared. She nodded politely to both and turned to return to her seat. Excuse me, Whitaker said suddenly. May I see your boarding pass? The request was unusual enough to make Elise pause. My boarding pass? Yes, just a routine check. Jennifer looked confused. Captain, I've already verified all first-class passengers. Whitaker's expression hardened. Nevertheless, I'd like to see it. The atmosphere in the cabin, already somewhat tense from their earlier interaction, grew heavier. Other passengers watched with undisguised interest as Elise returned to her seat, retrieved her boarding pass from her bag, and presented it to the captain. He examined it with exaggerated care, turning it over as if searching for signs of forgery. Dr. Elise Montgomery, he read aloud. Seat 3A, he looked from the pass to Elise and back again, his expression unreadable. Is there a problem, Captain? Elise asked, her voice controlled but with an undercurrent of steel. For a moment it seemed Whitaker might back down, might hand back the boarding pass with a murmured apology and return to the cockpit. But something, pride perhaps, or something darker, prevented him. I'm responsible for the safety and comfort of everyone on this aircraft, he said, loud enough for the entire first-class cabin to hear. That includes ensuring passengers are in their assigned seats. As you can see, Elise replied, gesturing to the boarding pass still in his hand, I am in my assigned seat. The teenage boy from the main cabin, Tyler, had come forward to use the first-class lavatory, technically against airline policy but often overlooked on long flights when the rear lavatories were occupied. He stood near the galley, AirPods now around his neck, watching the scene unfold with undisguised interest. Perhaps it was the boy's presence that pushed Whitaker over the edge, the teenager's wide eyes, the smartphone clutched in his hand. Perhaps it was the accumulated frustration of a career that Whitaker felt was increasingly disrespecting his authority, his experience. Or perhaps it was simply the raw, ugly truth of bias finally finding its voice. Whatever the catalyst, the words that came next changed everything. "Get that monkey out of my first-class cabin, now!" The slur lands like a physical blow. Several passengers audibly gasp. Tyler's hand tightens around his phone, and without thinking, he begins to record. The elderly couple in 2A and 2B look at each other in horror. Dr. Abernathy half rises from his seat, mouth open in shock. Jennifer steps forward immediately, her face pale. "Captain Whitaker, Dr. Montgomery is a platinum member, and I don't care if she's the Queen of Sheba," Whitaker snaps. "I'm the captain of this aircraft, and I want her moved." Dr. Montgomery's hands remain perfectly still on her journal, her years of surgical discipline evident in her controlled response. "Jennifer," she says calmly, "please note that your captain has referred to me as a monkey and is attempting to remove me from the seat I paid for. I'd like his full name and employee number for my complaint." The tension in the cabin stretches taut as piano wire. Tyler continues recording, his wide eyes darting between the captain and Dr. Montgomery. And that's when the bathroom door at the front of the cabin swings open. Marcus Montgomery steps into the aisle, 6'3" of controlled power in a tailored charcoal suit. His presence immediately recalibrates the energy of the space. The CEO of Ascendant Technologies takes in the scene with the same analytical precision that built his tech empire. His wife's rigid posture, the captain's aggressive stance, the horrified passengers, the recording phones. "I believe," Marcus says with deadly calm, "that my wife asked for your name and employee number, Captain Whitaker." Whitaker's face drains of color as recognition dawns. Marcus Montgomery is not just the husband of 3A, he's the CEO of one of Continental Airways' biggest corporate clients, a man whose company books thousands of flights annually, whose face has been on the cover of Forbes and Fortune, whose handshake can make or break multi-million-dollar contracts. "Mr. Montgomery," Whitaker says, his voice suddenly uncertain, "I didn't realize you were on board." "Clearly," Marcus replies. Eyes find Elise's, a silent communication passing between them. She gives him an almost imperceptible nod, permission to proceed. Marcus turns back to Whitaker. "I'll need you to repeat what you just said about my wife." The cabin is utterly silent now. Even the background hum of the engine seems to have faded. Every eye is on Whitaker, whose face has gone from pale to mottled red. "There's been a misunderstanding," he attempts. "No misunderstanding," Tyler interjects, holding up his phone. "I got it all right here." Marcus nods to the teenager, then turns to Jennifer. "As an executive platinum member and corporate account holder, I'm formally requesting this captain be removed from the flight upon landing. I'll be speaking directly with your CEO about this incident." Jennifer nods, professionalism masking her distress. "Of course, Mr. Montgomery, I'll contact the ground immediately." "That won't be necessary," Marcus continues. "I've already spoken with Continental's executive team. They're aware of the situation and will be meeting the flight." This news visibly shakes Whitaker. The realization that events have already spiraled beyond his control, that his actions have already been reported up the chain of command, hits him like a physical blow. First Officer Chen appears in the cockpit doorway, alerted by the commotion in the cabin. "Is everything all right, Captain?" Before Whitaker can respond, Marcus addresses Chen directly. "First Officer, I believe safety protocols dictate that if a pilot is unfit to fly for any reason, you're obligated to take command. Would you agree?" Chen looks between Whitaker and Montgomery, quickly assessing the situation. "Yes, sir, that's correct." "Then I suggest you consider whether a captain who uses racial slurs against passengers and attempts to unlawfully remove them from their assigned seats meets the definition of fit to fly." The first officer straightens, making his decision. "Captain Whitaker, I think you should return to the cockpit and allow me to handle the cabin situation." Whitaker's authority, already crumbling, collapses completely. His shoulders sag as he realizes the full impact of his actions, not just on this flight, but on his career, his reputation, his legacy. "This isn't over," he mutters, but the threat rings hollow as he retreats to the cockpit. Once he's gone, the cabin erupts in muted conversations. Several passengers approach Elise and Marcus to express their support and outrage on their behalf. Tyler comes forward, offering to send them the video he recorded. "Thank you," Elise tells him, her composure finally showing small cracks. "That was brave of you." Tyler shrugs, but his pride is evident. My mom always says to stand up when you see something wrong. She raised me right. Jennifer approaches with fresh drinks for both Montgomerys. Dr. Montgomery, Mr. Montgomery, I cannot express how deeply sorry I am about what happened. This does not reflect Continental Airways' values or policies. Marcus accepts the drink with a nod. We understand you're not responsible for the captain's actions. How you handle the situation from here, however, will determine whether Ascendant Technologies maintains its relationship with Continental. Jennifer's eyes widen slightly at the implied threat to the airline's valuable corporate account. I'll make sure this is addressed at the highest levels, sir. As she moves away, Elise turns to Marcus, speaking quietly. I thought you were on a later flight. Board meeting ended early. I was already headed to the airport when I got your texts. He takes her hand, his thumb tracing small circles on her palm. Are you okay? Elise considers the question carefully. Is she okay? The slur still rings in her ears, familiar in its ugliness but no less painful for that familiarity. She's experienced versions of this throughout her career. The questioning of her credentials, the assumptions about how she achieved her position, the subtle and not-so-subtle reminders that some will always see her skin color before they see her accomplishments. I've been better, she admits. But I've also been worse. Marcus nods, understanding completely. In their 23 years together, they've developed a shorthand for these moments, these reminders of the world's persistent biases. I didn't wait for an earlier flight just to hold your hand through this, she tells him, a small smile forming. I'm perfectly capable of handling racist pilots on my own. I know you are, he responds, but I wasn't about to miss seeing you accept that award tomorrow night. The Pacific expansion is locked in, the board is happy, and my calendar is clear for the next 3 days. Their moment is interrupted as the aircraft begins its initial descent towards San Francisco. The seatbelt sign illuminates with a soft ding. First Officer Chen's voice comes over the intercom, not Whitaker's, a detail noticed by everyone in first class. Ladies and gentlemen, we're beginning our descent into San Francisco International Airport. Weather is clear, temperature is 68 degrees. Flight attendants, please prepare the cabin for landing. As the announcement concludes, Elise's phone buzzes with an incoming email. The subject line catches her attention. Urgent, Continental Airways executive response. She opens it, scanning quickly, then shows it to Marcus. The message is from the airline's chief operating officer, expressing profound apologies for the incident and requesting a meeting immediately upon landing. The final paragraph stands out. Please be assured that Continental Airways has a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination of any kind. Captain Whitaker has been suspended pending investigation, effective upon landing. We value your business and your trust, and we are committed to making this right. Marcus reads it with a raised eyebrow. Suspended pending investigation, he repeats. Not good enough. Elise sighs, suddenly tired. What do you want, Marcus? His job. For starters, Marcus replies, his voice hard. Airline pilots hold enormous responsibility. They literally have hundreds of lives in their hands every day. If his judgment is compromised by this kind of bias, he shouldn't be in a cockpit. She can't argue with his logic, even as part of her recoils from the potential consequence. It's not that Whitaker doesn't deserve to lose his job. He absolutely does, but the weight of being the catalyst for that outcome feels heavy. This isn't just about us, Marcus continues, reading her expression perfectly. It's about every person of color who boards a plane under his command, never knowing they're being judged, being endangered, by someone who sees them as less than human. Before Elise can respond, the aircraft banks into its final approach, the golden light of late afternoon in Northern California streaming through the windows. Below San Francisco Bay glitters, the iconic Golden Gate Bridge visible in the distance. Under different circumstances, it would be a breathtaking view. The landing is smooth, First Officer Chen compensating for the challenging crosswinds with skill. As the aircraft taxis toward the terminal, tension builds again in the first-class cabin. What will happen when they reach the gate? Will Whitaker face immediate consequences? Will there be media waiting? Tyler, back in his economy seat but still keenly interested in the unfolding drama, has posted a clip of the incident to his social media accounts. In the 30 minutes since posting, it has already garnered hundreds of shares and comments, the first ripples of what will soon become a viral tsunami. At the gate, the usual announcement is made. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to San Francisco International Airport. Local time is 4:17 p.m. For your safety and the safety of those around you, please remain seated with your seatbelts fastened until the aircraft has come to a complete stop and the seatbelt sign has been turned off. As passengers prepare to disembark, gathering belongings and powering up phones, the cockpit door remains firmly closed. First Officer Chen emerges from the forward lavatory, having changed out of his uniform jacket into a more discreet white shirt. He approaches the Montgomerys. Dr. and Mr. Montgomery, there's a Continental Airways executive team waiting to meet with you in the premium lounge. They've asked if you'd be willing to disembark first. Marcus looks to Elise, deferring to her preference. That's fine, she says, but I'd like to thank the young man who recorded the incident and Dr. Abernathy as well. Chen nods. Of course, I'll make sure they know where to find you if they wish to speak with you. The aircraft doors open. Jennifer steps forward. Dr. and Mr. Montgomery, if you'll follow me, please. As they gather their belongings, other first-class passengers offer words of support. Disgraceful behavior from the captain. You handled it with such grace, Doctor. I've already called customer service to file a complaint. Elise thanks them sincerely, touched by their solidarity. As she and Marcus move toward the exit, she pauses beside Tyler's row in economy. Thank you again, she tells him. What's your name? Tyler Jenkins, ma'am. Well, Tyler Jenkins, you did something important today. You saw an injustice and you documented it. That matters. Tyler nods, suddenly shy in the face of her gratitude. Just did what was right. The world needs more of that, Marcus adds, handing Tyler a business card. If you're ever interested in tech, give me a call. We need people with moral courage. Tyler's eyes widen as he reads the card. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. In the jetway, 3 Continental Airways executives wait, their expressions a careful blend of concern and damage control. The oldest of the 3, a silver-haired man with a Continental pin on his lapel, steps forward. Dr. Montgomery, Mr. Montgomery, I'm Robert Daniels, Chief Operating Officer for Continental. On behalf of the entire airline, I want to express our deepest apologies for what occurred on your flight today. Marcus's expression remains impassive. I think this conversation would be better continued in private, Mr. Daniels. Of course, we have a room prepared in the executive lounge. As they walk through the terminal, Elise notices the stir they create. Marcus is recognizable enough on his own, but together, they're the kind of power couple that draws attention even without the context of the incident. Several travelers glance at them curiously, a few even taking discreet photos with their phones. In the exclusive confines of the Continental Executive Lounge, the real conversation begins. Daniels is joined by the airline's general counsel and its vice president of public relations, a telling combination that speaks volumes about the company's concerns. First and foremost, Daniels begins once they're seated in a private conference room, I want to assure you that Captain Whitaker has been suspended immediately. We have a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination, and his actions today violated not just that policy but the basic standards of human decency. The VP of Public Relations, a stylishly dressed woman in her 40s, adds, We're preparing a public statement condemning the incident and affirming our commitment to equality and respect for all passengers. Marcus leans forward slightly. Suspended pending investigation, he quotes from the email. That suggests the possibility of reinstatement. The general counsel shifts uncomfortably. We have procedures that must be followed, union agreements to consider. My wife was called a monkey by one of your captains, Marcus interrupts, his voice deadly quiet. In front of a plane full of witnesses, on video that is, as we speak, spreading across the internet. There is no investigation needed because there is no ambiguity about what happened. Elise places a hand on his arm, not to restrain but to support. What Marcus is saying, she continues, her tone measured, is that Continental now faces a choice. You can follow your procedures, conduct your investigation, and eventually terminate Captain Whitaker after weeks or months of administrative processes. Or you can demonstrate through immediate, decisive action that Continental truly has zero tolerance for racism among its employees. The executives exchange glances, the unspoken calculation evident in their expressions. The cost of breaking with procedure versus the cost of appearing to hesitate in addressing such a clear-cut case of discrimination. Daniels looks directly at Marcus. Ascendant Technologies is one of our most valued corporate clients, Mr. Montgomery. The annual contract renewal is coming up next month. I hope this unfortunate incident won't affect our relationship. It's a transparent attempt to shift the conversation from moral imperative to business negotiation, a framework in which Daniels clearly feels more comfortable. Marcus smiles, but there's no warmth in it. Mr. Daniels, let me be very clear. This isn't about our corporate contract. This is about whether Continental Airways is an airline that allows its employees to use racial slurs against passengers without immediate termination. The PR executive interjects. We understand and we share your outrage. We're prepared to offer compensation for your inconvenience, upgrades to your return flights, vouchers for future travel. We don't want compensation, Elise interrupts firmly. We want accountability. The room falls silent as the executives absorb this. Finally, Daniels nods. I understand. If you'll excuse us for a moment, I need to consult with my colleagues. The three Continental representatives step outside, leaving Elise and Marcus alone in the conference room. They're stalling, Marcus observes once the door closes. Elise nods. Buying time to see how viral the video is going, what the public reaction looks like. Calculating the financial impact of different responses. They share a knowing look, both intimately familiar with corporate crisis management from their respective fields. Whatever they decide, Elise says quietly, I just want this to be over. I have an award to accept tomorrow night, and I'd rather focus on that than on Captain Richard Whittaker and his outdated prejudices. Marcus takes her hand. And you will, but first we make sure Continental does the right thing, not just for us, but for everyone who comes after us. Outside the conference room, the Continental executives huddle in urgent conversation. Through the glass walls, Elise can see Daniels on his phone, his expression growing increasingly grave as he receives what appears to be unwelcome news. When they return, the atmosphere has shifted palpably. The video of the incident has gone viral, Daniels admits without preamble. It's been picked up by several news outlets and is trending on multiple platforms. In light of this development and after careful consideration, we've made the decision to terminate Captain Whittaker's employment, effective immediately. The PR executive adds, we'll be issuing a public statement within the hour, condemning his actions in the strongest possible terms and reaffirming Continental's commitment to equality and respect. Marcus nods, satisfied but not celebratory. There's no triumph in this outcome, only the grim necessity of consequences. We appreciate your decisiveness, he says. I trust Continental will also be reaching out to the other passengers who witnessed the incident, particularly the young man, Tyler, who recorded it. Yes, absolutely, the PR executive assures him. We're identifying all passengers now and will be contacting them with our apologies and appropriate goodwill gestures. As the meeting concludes and hands are shaken, Daniels asks one final question. Dr. Montgomery, may I ask what brings you to San Francisco? Elise straightens slightly, pride momentarily displacing the fatigue of the day's events. I'm receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award from the American College of Surgeons tomorrow night for my work in pediatric cardiothoracic surgery. Daniels looks genuinely impressed. Congratulations, that's truly remarkable. Thank you, she replies simply. As they leave the lounge, making their way through the terminal toward the exit where a car waits to take them to their hotel, Elise and Marcus walk in comfortable silence, hands intertwined. Around them, travelers rush to gates, reunite with loved ones, begin or end journeys of their own. At the curb, as their luggage is loaded into the waiting town car, Elise finally gives voice to the question that's been lingering since the confrontation on the plane. Do you think it made a difference? Will firing one pilot really change anything in the grand scheme of things? Marcus considers this as they settle into the back seat. Systemic problems require systemic solutions, he acknowledges. But systems are made up of individuals. Every time there's a consequence for this kind of behavior, it sends a message. Every time someone like Tyler speaks up, it matters. The car pulls away from the curb, merging into the flow of airport traffic. Through the window, Elise watches planes take off and land against the backdrop of the setting sun, each one carrying hundreds of people with their own stories, their own struggles, their own moments of courage or cowardice. Besides, Marcus continues, tomorrow night you'll be accepting an award for work that has saved thousands of children's lives, children of every color from every background. If that's not changing the world for the better, I don't know what is. Elise smiles, feeling some of the day's tension finally begin to dissipate. When did you get so wise, Mr. Montgomery? I married up, he replies with a grin. Way up. As their car crosses the Bay Bridge, the golden hour bathes San Francisco in warm light, the city's iconic skyline etched against the deepening blue of the evening sky. Behind them at the airport, Captain Richard Whittaker is being escorted from the premises, his 43-year career ended by a moment of unguarded bigotry. Tyler Jenkins is calling his father, excitedly recounting his role in the day's events, the business card from Marcus Montgomery safely tucked in his wallet. Continental executives are drafting statements, managing fallout, calculating costs. And here, in this quiet moment between airports and hotels, between confrontation and celebration, Elise Montgomery rests her head on her husband's shoulder, grateful for his presence, for his unwavering support, but most of all for his understanding that while she's perfectly capable of fighting her own battles, some burdens are lighter when shared. Tomorrow she will stand on a stage in front of her peers and accept recognition for decades of healing, of literally holding broken hearts in her skilled hands and making them whole again. Tonight, though, she allows herself to be held, to acknowledge that even the strongest among us sometimes need the courage of others to help us face the next day. "Hey," Marcus says softly as they approach their hotel. "I'm proud of you, not just for tomorrow's award, but for how you handled everything today." Elise meets his gaze, seeing in his eyes the same passion and principle that first drew her to him all those years ago. "We handled it," she corrects him. "Together." The car slows to a stop in front of the Fairmont Hotel, its grand facade illuminated against the darkening sky. As they step out onto the sidewalk, Elise takes a deep breath of the cool San Francisco air, letting it fill her lungs and clear her mind. Tomorrow is a new day, with its own challenges and triumphs waiting to unfold. Tonight, though, they will rest, they will recover. They will remind each other of all they've built together and all that still lies ahead. And somewhere over America, other flights continue their journeys through the night sky, carrying passengers who may never know how one confrontation at 37,000 feet helped ensure that the next time someone faces discrimination in the cramped confines of an airplane cabin, perhaps one more voice will be ready to speak up, one more witness ready to record, one more authority figure ready to act with the decisive clarity that justice demands. Because that's how change happens, not all at once in grand, sweeping gestures, but in individual moments of courage, accountability, and consequence. One flight at a time, one stand at a time, one victory at a time until the pattern slowly, gradually begins to shift towards something better. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel for more thought-provoking content that explores complex social issues through engaging narratives. We'd also love to hear your thoughts in the comments section below. Where were you watching from? Have you ever witnessed or experienced discrimination while traveling? Your stories and perspectives matter to our community. Thank you for watching. Pilot calls Black Woman Monkey in first class. Her CEO husband walks in and fires him on the spot. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video with others who might find it meaningful.